Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the amazing Springbok career of 2004 Tri-Nations champion Marius Joubert. Marius, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Hey Pete, and thank you for the invitation to your channel.
It's my pleasure. Now, just before we begin our conversation, let's take a look at today's trivia question. In 1992, South Africa returned to international rugby. Who wore the number 13 jersey in the first test back against New Zealand? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below. And we'll also find out if Marius knows the answer. I'm pretty sure he will, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Marius, I'd like to begin in 2001. Talk to me about how you were feeling when you made your Springbok test debut against the All Blacks.
I think my rise to Springbok selection was quite interesting. I started at playing at Wellington, which was the club local here in the Boland, and then made it to the Boland side at a very young age. And I can remember that, without any Stormer rugby or provincial rugby. Well, I played in the Currie Cup for Boland at a very young age, but I managed to break through, and the selection for the Springboks were very unexpected. Even though I was playing good rugby at Boland, I played for the S21s and S23s, so I had a bit of experience at that level. But obviously a total different story being selected for the box, under Harry Viljoen. I remember clearly I was still at my girlfriend's house, and now my wife, I got a call from Bobby Skinstad, and I thought he was making a joke, telling me that you've been selected for the 2001 team and you're going to play against the All Blacks. So, it was quite an emotional one, quite unexpected, the rise to Springbok selection. But very grateful and very emotional, and it was a special day, even though I got injured.
We'll talk about the injury in a moment, but Marius, some people say that it's better to make your Springbok debut against a team that is less formidable, like a Scotland or an Italy, compared to New Zealand. What's your opinion?
I think it will help, definitely. I've got thrown in the straight starting lineup, 13 outside Robbie Fleck, with senior guys like Andre Venter, Joost van der Westhuizen, Mark Andrews, legends that I looked up to. Myself and Joe van Niekerk made the squad at that stage, and we were sitting in the front of the bus, like trying to keep quiet, etc. All the senior guys in the back of the bus in those days. So it was quite a surreal experience, but I think even though if I could have started off the bench maybe like Joe did and worked himself in, but I was very happy with the selection, and I was confident in playing good rugby at that stage. So I was even though I was just 21 years old, which was quite young at that stage, and without any Stormer experience or Super Rugby experience, it was a tough day at the office, and guys like John Olomo and Ron Cribb and legends of the game. And but it was still a great experience, and it would have been easier if I maybe made a debut against your lesser unions or countries. But it was still a memorable one.
As you mentioned, you picked up an injury in that match. How disappointing was that for you?
I remember clearly I dropped the first ball I received from Robbie Fleck, and we used to joke like Robbie Fleck used to dummy quite a bit, so I didn't expect him to pass. I expected the dummy, and then he actually passed the first ball, so I managed to drop that. But then I got into the game quite nicely, and I made a few good hits and a few good runs. But it unfortunately just lasted 25 minutes. I tackled Ron Cribb off the back of a scrum, and torn my medial ligaments, and not a great start to my rugby career. But unfortunately, injuries are part of the game, and that's how it goes.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? It's my dream, guys, to do this full time, and with a small financial contribution, you can help me realize that dream. The link and the QR code is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll also put it down in the description area for you to go and click on at a later stage if you would like to do so. And by becoming a patron, I promise there will be great benefits for members. Now let's get back to the interview. What can you tell us about Harry Viljoen as a coach, as you experienced him?
Well, Harry. There was always rumors that Harry was going to take over from the previous coach. I think it was what was it, Nick Mallet, and at that stage, and you know, I think he was a guy way ahead of his time. Very professional. Tried different things, different setups. Because even though we played for the Springboks, things were not really professional. If you look at how professional they are now. So he wanted to bring in professionalism to the team, and you needed to dress well, and you needed to be certain things. I remember we got a polo watch. This where you put it onto your, like, for training, and you had to capture all your exercises and trainings and stuff like that. So that was quite new and quite advanced at that stage. But yeah, Harry was, unfortunately, I didn't play long under Harry. I've got injured after one game, and then missed missed the rest of the Springbok campaign, and only came back in 2002 under Rudolf Streauli. But I'm sure we'll get to him just now. But yeah, unfortunately, not long under Harry to make any positive comments or negative comments. So yeah, but yeah, it's a pity. Yeah, at that stage, in that period, coaches came and gone very, very quickly. So it was difficult to get the rhythm going.
As you mentioned, 2002, you were back in the squad. It was almost a year later compared to that All Blacks test match against Wales, and you scored your first test try as well. How enjoyable was that?
We had a good Stormer campaign. We played well together, so we obviously took that confidence into the 2002 season. So, yeah, Rudolf Streauli selected me for the 2002 season, and yeah, it was a different setup to what we were used to at the Stormers. I remember we went to the police college in Pretoria, and we used to stay there in these small little bungalow type of vibe. Nothing fancy, which is good for a camp and everyone get together. Yeah, we had Mr. I think it was Gideon Sam. We had, he always used to come and look at our shirts, that everyone's got the same shirts, because sometimes it's dirty and things like that. And then, if you didn't have the right shirt on, you get a fine. You got a fine for a lot of things. At that stage, I remember, I think I got a yellow card against New Zealand, and I got a fine for a few £1,000. And then, so it was a different era. It was exciting, but it had these challenges just because of the different way of coaching and approach to the game.
You mentioned New Zealand there, and that's where we're going to go now. During the Tri Nations in 2002 in Durban, we were actually doing quite well, and then suddenly there was a crazy fan that ran onto the field, Piet Van Zyl, and he tackled the referee. What were you thinking at that stage?
Well, to be honest with you, I think myself and the vet was in the midfield at that stage, and he actually came running right through me and him. I don't know how he got that right. We were waiting for the scrum, and he came. We were obviously turned the other way, and we didn't see him coming. And he ran right through us on its way to. And I didn't actually realize what was happening till I think he got a few slaps and was carried off. So everything happened so quickly, we didn't expect it. Even though I thought he might have at some point going forward, because the referee was nailing us a bit at that stage. That was just how it went at that stage. Referees had a thing in for our Springbok sides at that stage. It got carried off, and it went well, but we unfortunately lost that game narrowly.
But a week later, we had a memorable win against the Wallabies at Ellis Park. They actually scored a try right at the end, and it looked like they were going to beat us. And then Van der Greef scored that beautiful try right at the end to get us the victory. How memorable was it to be part of a match like that?
We hadn't done so well in the Tri Nations. There was a lot of, it's hard to get positive after you've lost 3 games. And I think, we lost Andre Pretorius right at the end in that week before the game, and I moved Brent Russell to fly off at that stage. And we actually got off to a good start. We played really well, good rugby. Johannesburg Ellis Park was always difficult for the overseas teams to come at. And yeah, I think the fact that we were just, nothing to lose with last game of the season for the Boks, we just went out and played to our full potential. And yeah, and like you say, I mean, Banner scored the last try, and I think Brayton scored a couple, and Joe had a stormer, and Bob was playing well. So I think all in all, it went well, and it was a good end to what should have had to come, But then obviously the end of the tour was a mess, and going forward.
That end of year tour in 2002, you only featured off the bench against France. You missed the matches against Scotland and England. Was that also because of injury?
Yeah, so what happened there was I wasn't selected for the first game against France. I think it was going to be A.D. Jacobs and Robbie Fleck. And then I think by the Tuesday or Wednesday, Robbie, yeah, wasn't even on the bench. And then I think Adrian Jacobs got injured, or Robbie got injured. And John came from the bench onto the starting lineup, where he also got injured in the first 20 minutes of his debut. And then I came onto the bench. And then yeah, so I think by the Thursday, I think he got injured, John, or Robbie Fleck, and then John came onto the starting lineup, and then myself on the bench. So I wasn't really prepared to play a full 70 odd minutes against France, but yeah, it really tough at the office. Yeah, it wasn't a pretty day. It was a good French side with some hostile supporters, and even though we had patches that we were playing well, I think the coaching just lacked a bit. The experience just lacked a bit. So we didn't finish off that well. So yeah, I think that was just a bit of a problem, and then obviously a disaster of the rest of the tour. We got hammered. The game against Scotland, we had a bit of a contact session because in those days hulle praat van kleinveltjie speel. So we had a heavy contact session, and there was definitely some flare-ups between a few players, and I remember I had to carry the ball in between. I think it was Friedrich Lombard and Frikkie Walsh, and I was just like kind of over it, because we just get smashed, and there was no point to the drill or anything like that. And yeah, I torn my rotator cuff, and it was only time in rugby, because I mean, they didn't really took me to the hospital for X-rays or MRIs. Or I remember Neil de Kock also fractured his rib cage, and they didn't take them to the hospital to go and have scans or whatever. And yeah, I remember the one night Uli just injected some cortisone into my shoulder without exactly knowing what part he's hitting. And we had a guy called Ron Holder. He was like this kind of magician coming from the sky. And he was like rubbing my shoulder here, and then it's a little bit stronger here. But eventually Rudolf took me through my paces, trying to clear me for the England game, because I was out for the Scotland game. And Rudolf took me, like, he had his shorts on, a rugby jersey and socks, and he used to hold the tackle bag, and he had me like run 10 meters and then hit him, and then come back and then drop down and get up and hit him. And then eventually after the third one, I mean, I couldn't, my shoulder was gone. And eventually he said, no, we're flying back. Myself and Neil de Kock were flying back, and yeah, got the scans done here, and obviously MRI and a total reconstruction of my shoulder. So yeah, different times. But yeah, nonetheless, we did got a high on that tour. And yeah, it wasn't pretty for South African rugby at that stage.
Probably a good one to miss as well, Marius. But then the following year, you did play against Australia and Argentina. Australia, obviously, in the Tri-Nations. And then it was again the shoulder injury that kept you out of the Rugby World Cup. Was it the same shoulder?
It was the same shoulder, yeah. So 2003, I came back from injury, and I've made the Stormer side and I made the Boks side. So I was playing some decent rugby again, and I probably came back too early. I think the total rehab time was like 5 months, which should actually be a little bit more, like 6 months to even think of playing. So because it was quite a bad rotator cuff and bicep tendon tear. And yeah, my mobility in my shoulder wasn't what it had to be. And I remember it was actually a nice try from, I think it was Victor or someone, where he had like a long run around. But I make the tackle on Wendell Sailor as he kicked the ball, and he just fell on my shoulder with his big ass. And yeah, so the mobility wasn't there, and I just tore my shoulder again, and that was me. And I think yeah, what led after that was actually good that I got injured, because it wasn't a great period for South African rugby with the whole Staldraad saga and all that.
And you missed out on, maybe you dodged a bit of a bullet there, actually. And from what Corne Krige has told me, I think literally you dodged a bullet. Marius, you told us a little bit earlier about Harry Viljoen as a coach. What can you tell us about Rudolf?
Well, Rudolf was an interesting character. It was difficult to get along with him. I don't know if it was just because we were young at that stage. Maybe the senior guys got on with him better. But I remember clearly we played against Wales, where I scored my that first try, running off, I think it was Bola Conradi. And some guys didn't have such a good game, and I remember rooming with Andre Snyman. And I think I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he was packing his bags, and I said, "But what are you doing? This is now after the first test." And I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "No, I've been dropped for the following game. I'm going home." And I said, like, that's strange. And well, at breakfast time, we were all sitting at breakfast time, and then I think it was Brayton, Victor, Andres Neyman, I think there was one or two other guys, senior guys in the side that he basically dropped. So he basically wanted to make a point where nobody is safe in this side. So it was like a kind of a little threat. Even though we've won comfortably, I think it wasn't necessary for them to be dropped. So yeah, not so many fond memories of old Rudolfie. But yeah, I guess we had to go through it to get better, as we progressed in Springbok rugby.
And then the following year, Jake White came in, and it was a rejuvenated Springbok team. And you formed a very effective centre combination with DeVette Barry. And I know that the two of you had played together in previous years, also for the Stormers and Western Province. But what is it, in your view, that made the two of you so special?
I think the fact that we did play together at Stormers, the fact that we took that confidence right through. We actually had a very good season. That year, I think we ended up playing in the semi-finals. The majority of the squad was kind of Stormer guys. But also a Paul Jim boy, working, disciplined, no nonsense. He doesn't take any nonsense, old vet. And yeah, I identified his attributes. He was a hard runner, and he had a good offload. So I just made sure that whenever he goes, I need to be close to him. And I think, those type of things made us a good partnership, because he ran hard, he broke tackles and things like that. So yeah, and then obviously defensively we worked well as a unit. And yeah, like the fact that we played together so much, I think, I think we held the record till I think Jean and Jacques took it over, and then I don't know if there's another, maybe Lucanio Arm and Damien or someone that took that over, or Jesse. But yeah, I think the fact that the more you play together, it doesn't matter who you are, at what position, 9, 10, 11, 15, 14, more you play together, the better you will become.
And that year in the Tri-Nations, we actually did quite well. Even though we lost both our matches overseas, they were narrow defeats. And right up until the end, we were still very much in those matches. Coming home, obviously we were still in the competition and had a chance to win it. What was the belief like in the Springbok camp at that stage?
Yeah, I think the fact that we pushed the All Blacks to the last minute with the Dougie Howlett try, and really put them under pressure. We really, really played well and scored some nice tries. And against Australia, we took out a lot of confidence out of those two games. We managed to accumulate 2 bonus points from each. So it was basically the ball was in our court. Playing at home. At Ellis Park and at Durban. Playing the All Blacks at Ellis Park was a great venue for us. Yeah, I think just the fact that we were in it, and we had some goals, like Jake, like you said, it was rejuvenated side, some new faces. It's actually a plan where we're working to the World Cup 2007. Yeah, so there was some direction, and some really good coaches as well. And even though we worked our butts off, long camps before we went into the series, we worked really, really hard to get those results. So I think the fact that we were in it, the South African way is just the South African way. So we got an opportunity, we got a chance, and we took it.
Okay, Marius, I think you know what we're going to talk about now. The All Blacks test at Ellis Park. After you had scored your second try, were you thinking today might be my day for a hat-trick?
No, to be honest with you, I didn't even think about hat trick. I was just in the moment of winning this game. I was really pumped up after that second try. I could feel the momentum shift because we didn't have a good start. We were trailing 10-0 with a great try by Miles Muliaina right through a team, and it was a good side. It was a good All Black side. But we got the feeling that we're putting them under the pump. And I think, with that final try, it was just like, it just opened up, to be honest with you. I never thought I would score 3 tries. Could have scored 5 tries on that day because it was just, I think I offloaded to Jean just before the try line for his try. I think we had like a 3-man overlap and the vet just held 1 meter too long and Rokethoko knocked the ball on, so we could have walked through and we delayed his pass the vet. And so it was from 3 tries to 5 tries. It was just, we were just feeling we were dominating them. And I think the whole drive from the hotel to the stadium, that Springbok vibe going into Ellis Park. And I remember clearly sitting on the bus and just, the responsibility that we had to perform for these people. And I just said to myself, Marius, you got to step up today. You got to step up today. And yeah, it worked out. And yeah, it was a great day at the office.
And when you did actually score the third, what did that feel like?
Oh, jubilation, because I knew the game is now out of reach for the All Blacks. Even though I think they had to score twice to actually pip us. I mean, yeah, 3 tries. I didn't really realize that it's just been myself and Raymond, and I think an Australian guy in the 1960s odd that ever scored an All Black 3 tries against the All Blacks. So I didn't even know that till afterwards. But yeah, jubilation, obviously, Jean coming over me and we started counting on our fingers, what's quite iconic. And I'm sure, yeah, it's a memorable thing. I think whenever South Africa play the All Blacks, that little reel always come up, which is nice. Yeah, so just ecstatic because I knew we now in a good position to close this game out.
And then the following week, we did beat the Wallabies in Durban, and that meant that we had won the Tri Nations. How special was that?
Again, I think it comes down to coaching and that vision and that mission, and good quality coaches. I remember at the Stormers we had good coaches, but we went through a patch where we were, I think it was Alan Zondag, then it was Gert and Karel, then it was Kobus van der Merwe and Nick Mallet, and so you can never build any continuity with that. You need to get a coach and be there for a while. But going into the Australian test, obviously very confident. Well, they pushed us to the limit. That the whole Rathbone saga was also going up, that he came back to home base. And yeah, I think it was just meant to be. I think we were meant to beat them, and I think that set the whole pattern for Jake and the 2007 World Cup.
And then on the end of year tour, we lost to Ireland and England. And you'll remember that Irish game with that sneaky try when John Smith turned his back to talk to the players. But maybe the England game, I think you could say that they kind of overpowered us that day. Do you think that those 2 defeats kind of brought the players back down to earth and showed that maybe there was still some way to go and that we were not quite where we wanted to be yet?
Yeah, definitely. I think we also tried a few new players at the end of the year, on that end of the year tour. I remember we came back from that Australian victory and we went straight into Curry Cup. I went from beating the Australia, flying Sunday home. Monday we joined the Western Province side, and we flew to Griquas on that weekend to go and play them in Kimberley, which is quite the contrast if you look at the. We weren't too keen to play, but to go. But I also managed to score 3 tries in that game, which was quite nice. Yeah, so going into that whole Curry Cup, we played in I think it was a semi-final that we've lost, and so we had a decent campaign in the Curry Cup, and then yeah, on the end of the tour, I think they've tried a few different options, and like maybe little partnerships and going through, and Wales pushed us to the limit, even though we started well, and but we finished off nicely. And then was it England that it was Ireland that following game? Was it Ireland that following game? I think so. Yeah. So obviously that was chaos because we really played well in that game. And when that sneaky try of Agora, which is an understatement of sneaky, that was bloody sneaky. I think Bucky's just went. Now we're gonna just kill these players. We're not gonna stick to our game plan. We just wanted to tackle the Irish, and we maybe a bit of inexperience, maybe lost some focus. We kind of almost just tried to play the player, rather than sticking to our game and have that experience going through. But yeah, obviously with the Grand Slam being up for grabs, that was a bit of a disappointing one. And then going into the England game, I think we got our strategy wrong for that game because it was hell of a cold that day, and I think it was snow next to the field, and the ball was quite slippery. And I remember we wanted to play like a running game, if I'm not mistaken, and it wasn't the conditions didn't suit the running game. So I think we lost a bit of structure and lost a bit of our game plan, and that maybe we didn't prepare our game plan that well before the England game. But yeah, it was a hell of a long tour. I remember we got together 2 weeks before that Wales side, so it was like a 7-8 week tour because we flew from to Argentina after we finished the Grand Slam. So yeah, but we finished off well, and England were good on that day, and it's a pity that we couldn't pull that one through and finished off against Scotland with good Brian Abana tries and some good interplay, and yeah, so yeah, it wasn't a bad tour after all.
Into 2005, again against Australia, this time in Sydney. And as it turned out, that was your last test match for the Springboks. How disappointed were you that it ended there?
Yeah, I really, didn't think it was going to end so soon. I mean, I was actually not playing too bad at the Stormers campaign. Even though we had a bit of disruption with coaches, things like that, and lost a bit of momentum there, and different type of structures and plays and things like that. So it takes time to adapt to that. And then, yeah, I was in the mix in 2005, sat on the bench in that 2005 game against New Zealand that we narrowly lost. And then obviously Australia was just a mess. That first, I think it was a Freedom Cup or Mandela Challenge or something like that. Yeah, we lost quite convincingly. And yeah, it just didn't fire. There were some new combinations and didn't fire that well. And yeah, just sat on the bench for the rest of the campaign.
It also meant that because of injuries, you missed out on the 2003 as well as 2007 Rugby World Cups. How much of a regret is that for you?
2003, not so much, because I don't think, you put a World Cup on a pedestal like that's going to be an amazing journey and things like that. I don't think South Africa was ready at that stage for it. I don't think we had the right personnel for that 2003 campaign. There was some inner politics and things that just didn't went the right way. We were never going to do well on that tour. But then 2007, I was quite disappointed. Actually, my dad phoned me and he said, "Did you read the burger at the back of the burger?" And I was like, "No, what's going on? I don't really read the papers." And I went to buy the paper, and it said VP klaar met Joubert, and I was still in negotiations with Province, and so it was to find out that that happened was quite a little bit of a sting, even though everything we've like what we contributed to the Stormers campaigns at that stage, and but I mean it was Quibus, and he was young, and he had some new ideas, and even though we were still busy negotiating, I had to find out on the papers that's my way forward. So I went for newer pastures and obviously played for the Cheetahs and had a great 2007 Currie Cup there, and I really enjoyed my time in Bloemfontein. And I thought I would be maybe could be selected out of the 2007 Currie Cup campaign, or the Super Rugby campaign, basically. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't do too well in the Super Rugby, but we did well in the Currie Cup, and I think I was on the short list for the world. And then when Jean de Villiers got injured, I thought might be an opportunity when he tore his bicep, and I thought this might be an opportunity, and just didn't get the selection, and I went with Wayne Julius, which been on a World Cup campaign for, hasn't really played much rugby that season. So, knowing Wayne is also quality player and could definitely fill the steps of Jean, and so yeah, but disappointed, but I mean that's rugby.
Okay, earlier I asked you about Harry and Rudolf. What can you tell us about Jake White as a coach?
Well, Jake was, obviously came through the ranks and coached at the SA under 21 levels. I missed him at the year that they beat All Blacks, but I was coached by Eugene Eloff and Eric Sols at that stage the following year. So he came through the ranks and obviously been part of the 95 World Cup squad. And so I enjoyed him. He had a plan, he had a vision. He backed myself and the vet and Jaco van der Westhuizen and Bola Conradi and later on Farid Priya. So he wanted to let the side settle, and that was all good, because we could just go out and play and enjoy our rugby and do as much as we can. So yeah, he was kind of a visionary. He wanted to go to the World Cup and win the World Cup. Personnel changed on the way. Guys went out of form and guys came into form. And even though we were part of the group going forward and trained on these campaigns where we used to go to Joburg or Pretoria, and we gymmed for like 4 to 5 weeks, and we just trained, just to get strong. And they used to send teams that not the A group to Australia or to New Zealand. But I enjoyed him. Jake is an enjoyable character. He's quite strict and you kind of probably need that. But he had a vision, and that's important. He had a game plan, and he enjoyed the way the Australians used to play, and we had all kind of cut moves and things like that. And it paid off.
So who was your toughest opponent?
If I look at my toughest opponent, you probably look at Tana Umaga. He's quite a toughie. Brian O'Driscoll, Sterling Mortlock. I think that's my 3 favorite players that I've played against. And then if you look at France, where I also spent quite a bit of time, you had a guy like Zozio, Yannick Zozio, was also a quality rugby player. So I would say those are my toughest opponents.
And when you look around today, is there a current player that you admire?
Current player that I admire at the moment, I admire even Itzebet for longevity that he's playing. That looks like that he's playing all the time. Obviously the training regimes are much different than back in the day. I always used to say we train to play well on the weekend and Afrikaans I say ons gaan speel soos wat ons oefen. So we used to train quite hard in the week, and then on Saturdays we didn't have any legs left. Like the trajectory must going up. So they obviously got a bit of a different regime now and look after the players a little bit better. So even it's a bit for his work rate and for the quality player that he is. I think he's quite a gem. And then I've just all of them, Cheslin Colby. I've been watching the Chasing the Sun, and the stories and Makazolum Pimpi, the stories is beautiful. It brings tears to your eyes, and it's a huge responsibility to play for the Springboks, and people want results, and the planning that Rusty and Jock and all these guys do, it's massive, and yeah, I'm just grateful that Springbok rugby is at a good place.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
I can share probably it's basically off the field story, and then it was maybe a little bit on the field story. I think Rassie, my 2007 year was quite interesting. Rassie was the coach at the Super Rugby at that stage, and we had Elgard Miller, our manager, and so Rassie was busy working on his lights with the electrician on the top of the roof. He was busy sorting out the lights and make sure that works. And he just came from the the traffic department. He organized a little traffic jam because the Bulls had to come in. So he organized a little traffic jam for the Saturday. So as the Bulls drove in, Rassie organized a little traffic jam, so that the Bulls had to get out a kilometer from the stadium, because normally the bus will drive right to the front of the stadium, and then they just get off into the change rooms. And so the Bulls boys had to get off and walk that kilometer, which wasn't great for them. And we had our captain's run on that Friday, and that was now organized for the Saturday. So Rassie, Elgard Miller, he used to what do you call it, huckle, stutter quite a bit, and he said, and it's probably better to put it on Afrikaans, and he went like, manne, môre kom ons 12 uur by mekaar by die hotel, en julle moet almal julle sweetpakke aantrek. En ons draai om, en hy sê moet ons al 6 sweetpakke aantrek. En die manne bars lekker uit van die lag, en so, ja, ons het lekker, manne was lekker stout gewees, en ek onthou ons het een keer, we grabbed we were in Australia, and Helen Milson was our lovely lady, was our fisher, and we grabbed a possum next to the road. We were walking back from, I think we went to the local shop there, and at night time, and we walked back and we picked up this possum, and we went to Helen's room, and we knocked on the door, and as she opened the door, we pushed the possum. I mean, that thing is huge, and we pushed the possum into the door and closed it again, and we just heard some screams and in the room, and eventually I had to remove the possum, which was quite funny.
And what are you up to these days?
I'm involved in a container business. We do some selling of containers, renting them out, and conversions, and then I've got a industrial surface protection and control business. Yeah, so we in that space at the moment.
Okay, Marius, let's finish off again by looking at that trivia question. In 1992, South Africa returned to international rugby. Who wore the number 13 jersey in the first test back against New Zealand? All right, I'm pretty sure you know the answer to this one, Marius.
Danie Gerber.
Danie Gerber, indeed. And I take it he was a hero of yours growing up.
Yeah, he was definitely a hero of me growing up, and we still have contact, and we kind of chat now and then. But yeah, quality guy, quality player back in the day.
Marius, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure, and I really hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, 2007 Rugby World Cup winner BJ Botha was my guest. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, I'll have Charles Marais here.